PEL 37 is a very large license. It's over 17,000 square kilometers that is inboard and offsets PEL 82. It expands our aperture of exposure to what we think will be the next big basin in Namibia's offshore business.
All right, welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Robert Bose. He is the CEO of Sintana Energy. And Robert, it's always great to see you. How are you doing?
Doing well, Steve. Doing well. Summer's coming to an end, which is a little sad, but we've been very busy. But it's great to see you. It's been a little while. Thank you for having me back. I
Yeah.
appreciate the time, and it's great to see you.
Yeah, you got lots of stuff to talk about, so let's get to it. Equinor has farmed into PEL 90, first overseas investment since 2017. So obviously this is significant. And what does it mean for your company, Robert?
I mean, it's just another tremendous endorsement, I think, Steve, about the quality of the portfolio we have in Namibia. And, PEL 90 has been a really exciting license for us right from the start. To be honest with you, when we first stepped into our transaction in Namibia, PEL 90 was probably at the top in terms of licenses we were excited about. And PEL 83 kind of emerged as this prize through all of the efforts that Galp and now Total had been making on Mopane. But PEL 90 has been front and center in terms of our expectations. And your audience may recall Chevron actually drilled an initial well there in late 2024. That was not a commercial success, but we have remained extremely confident about the potential and prospects for PEL 90, and having a company like Equinor step into the JV. And as you allude to, its first investment in nearly a decade internationally in terms of a new country entry, I think just really endorses the quality of the portfolio and the opportunity that we see. And, the next exploration well on PEL 90 is tuned up for late Q4. So they've joined the party at just the right time, and we're really excited about it. So just a great endorsement and another very significant relationship added to our portfolio of kind of world-class partners.
Yeah, and you've talked in the past about this increasing interest in Namibia, especially from some of the majors. And how does that sort of work into the work with your company and investments decisions, things like that? It seems to me that when you look at it from the outside looking in, that you're on the right track.
We certainly, I'll vigorously agree with you, Steve, and that's kind of always been the plan, is to find ourselves in places where we can attract those kinds of partners. And that is very similar to the experience we've been having in Uruguay. For your audience, they may recall when we stepped into our Challenger investment, we were already partnered with Chevron. And besides Sintana, there is no other small company. The balance of the licenses there are owned by APA, ENI, Shell, and QE. And we've continued to see significant entries by super majors there. And it mirrors the experience we're having in Namibia. And so that is at the heart of the strategy, is to find the jurisdictions where the opportunities are big enough and the quality is high enough that we can attract these kinds of partners. So I think it's another example of things kind of unfolding on strategy in terms of finding ourselves in a place where we can attract the likes of Equinor, and recently BP farmed into a number of licenses in the Walvis Basin, which I know we'll talk a little bit more about in a moment. But this kind of backdrop is exactly the type of backdrop we're looking for. As you allude to, it materially informs not only how we think about entering places and the types of licenses we're looking for, but as well helps us think about how we can realize on our progress, the type of M&A opportunities that may be available to us. Having the luxury of having partners of this scale and quality is at the heart of our strategy. And it's been nice to see it prove out not only in Namibia, but as well in Uruguay.
Okay, let's talk about a couple other things, Robert, while we have you here. PEL 37, you had news out about that investment into that block through a Namibian entity. And so tell me a little bit about this and what really attracted you towards it.
I think we've talked about it on in this forum in the past, Steve. We have been so fortunate to have what I think is, credibly characterized as a best-in-class portfolio in Namibia. Prior to this investment, we, have multiple licenses in, some of the most emerging and exciting areas in Namibia. We have multiple licenses in the Orange Basin. We have a Walvis Basin license, and we have been in receipt of opportunities to look at many, many things in Namibia. And we have wanted to be very selective in part because we have a very significant footprint there. And we think a best in class portfolio even before we did the Maravilla transaction. Um, the one exception was PEL 37. It has been a license that we have been focused on for a while. And the reason that we've been quite excited about it, and again, as your audience may recall, we have a license in the center of the Walvis Basin that's operated by Chevron. We're really excited about the opportunities there. And while PEL 90 is kind of at the front of the pack in terms of near-term activities from Chevron in Namibia, planning goes on for initial inaugural exploration efforts on PEL 82 sometime next year. And PEL 37 is a very large license. It's over 17,000 square kilometers that is inboard and offsets PEL 82. It expands our aperture of exposure to what we think will be the next big basin in Namibia's offshore business. And we've seen that activity kind of emerge recently, as I alluded to earlier. Our good friends at Eco Atlantic farmed out 3 Walvis Basin licenses to BP just over the past number of months. So there's been an escalating level of focus there. And so our interest in PEL 37 was to expand our exposure to what we think is going to be the next big thing in Namibia, to do it on a very sort of cost-effective basis and position ourselves to be able to sort of convert a very attractive prospectivity on PEL 37 into additional activity as the Walvis Basin continues to emerge. So it was the one license we wanted to get some exposure to. And as you said, through our investment in Maravilla, we've been able to do that. And the platform with Maravilla brings us additional opportunities to look at things more broadly in West Africa. So it's an expansion of our partnership with knowledge in Namibia. But it really brings us some very specific and unique benefits to what was already a best-in-class portfolio in country. So we had been working on it for a while, and it was great to get it sort of across this initial finish line.
Okay. We cannot let you go without asking about PEL 83 because that's something that I know everyone likes to ask you about. I know you're about to head into the drill season, so let's get a quick update on where you're at for that and all the activity
Sure,
happening now.
sure. Yeah, the hot topic, the hot topic.
Yeah,
It's been a hot topic for a while, but it's a nice problem
sure.
to have. I think we've heard comments recently from both Galp and Total, and Galp as recently as earlier this week, and Total, I think on their Q2 call, that the expectations were for sort of a crescendo of activity on Pellet 83 beginning kind of in late Q4. And your audience may recall the plan on the back of Total's farm-in is an initial 3-well program. It's an exploration and appraisal program. It is focused on potentially adding significant additional volumetrics to the already existing discoveries at Mopane, in addition to appraising a couple of those ahead of a potential FID in 2028. I think there has been a sense that all of those efforts would kick off in Q4, and I feel like we're on track. I mean, I can tell you that unlike people like me who focus on days and weeks in super major time, a little slippage, of a week or a month is really immaterial to a 40-year investment.
Yeah.
But I can certainly say, based on what we understand and hear and see, like things are on track, and we expect the drilling campaign to kick off later this year. And we think Adriano from Galp sort of made similar comments a few days ago at a conference in Namibia. So we're hearing that from the majors publicly and our partners, excuse me, publicly, and it comports with kind of what we're seeing from the inside.
Absolutely. All right, we look forward to that. It's going to be a really interesting fall, and really appreciate your time, Robert. I know you have a lot of news going on, and it's great to get a quick update on where everything's at. So we'll talk again soon. All right.
Sounds good. Thanks again for having me back, Steve. It was
Yeah.
much appreciated.
Good to see you, Robert Bose, the CEO of Sintana Energy.